Hello Lefties, this video will be soft-spoken, which is new for me, so if there's ever a point I'm too loud, just turn down the volume and comment so that I know for the next video. But I'm really excited for today because I have my friend Lauren joining me, who was nice enough to agree to be on the channel to discuss nutrition and also body image. And I realize these can be triggering topics for some people, so if that's true for you, feel free to watch any other video from any other ASMR artist on YouTube or any other platform, or any of my old videos that don't have to do with body image. But for me, I really do struggle with body image, and watching and listening and talking about body image actually really helps. So I hope this can be helpful for some people. And I asked Lauren to be on this video because she has an Instagram account in which she talks about body image, but also nutrition and health in general. So I thought she'd be a really great perspective to have. And I'm so fortunate that she agreed to help me out here. So please watch as much of this video as you can, just to support her and to support me. And I will be linking her Instagram, Nutrition Low, in the description box, so please follow her. Part of this video is just going to be me interviewing Lauren, and the second part is going to be a solo Lauren endeavor, and when she talks about kind of her own experience and also kind of what she's learned about body image and nutrition in general. So without further ado, we'll jump right into the interview. So I have Lauren's Instagram right here, and again, I watch it I look at it every day. So I thought for the beginning part of this video, what I would do is I would just talk to Lauren. I would kind of pull up some of my favorite ones and then have Lauren explain them to us, or share inspiration, or what it means, or whatever else. So I'm just going to scroll, and also, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to screen record this so I can put it up. 1 second. All right, so now I'm screen recording, and you can see Instagram right here, but you'll also see it because I'm going to put it in the video. I'm scrolling to find one that I really like to go through. So we'll start with the most recent and we'll move backwards. So I see this one here. It says, dismantling stereotypes, the prevalence of eating disorders and disordered eating in the BIPOC and LGBTQIA plus communities. How fitting for Pride Month. And there's a trigger warning, so I'll read that now. It says the following information will be detailing statistics about the prevalence of eating disorders and disordered eating in both the LGBTQIA plus community and communities of color. And then it gives us a definition. Behaviors defined by irregular eating habits and severe distress, concern, or anxiety about body weight or shape. Examples: anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and binge eating. And then I'm just going to keep reading it until the end so that Lauren can comment. Defining disordered eating: unhealthy eating behaviors coupled with concern or anxiety relating to body image. And this is important, I think, just because just even to understand how their own way you think about your body, it's important to know the terms and the definitions, although it may not seem super important, if you don't know those things, it's hard to get a basis as to how to understand how you're feeling. All right, so some general statistics. Minority groups have higher rates of binge eating disorder versus white peers. Black teens are 50% more likely to showcase bulimic behavior versus white teens. By POC, with eating disorders are less likely to be asked about ED symptoms by healthcare professionals, even though the rates are similar to that of white peers. But Latinx people more likely to suffer from bulimia nervosa over white peers. LGBTQIA plus individuals are also more likely to experience eating disorders at one point in their lifetime. Among males who have eating disorders, 42% identify as gay. Relatable. Almost half of Native American adolescents reported attempts at weight loss. So do you want to just comment on that quickly?
Yeah, sure. So, hello again, guys. But a few weeks ago, when I was thinking of ideas to do for this Instagram, This kind of came to me just as a person I'm a Black woman who struggled with body image. And I feel like a lot of my friends have struggled with it too, who are also Black women. And I was realizing how so many people only think of eating disorders, disordered eating, and body image as a white cis woman issue, when that is not the case, particularly because the beauty standards we've all grown up knowing are that of very thin um, white women. And I think that really messes with a lot of us more than we think. And there are so many people who are in marginalized communities who don't get to see themselves represented or see themselves like be beautiful. I think that's changing, but change is slow. And I really just wanted to highlight this for people so that one, people who are struggling wouldn't feel alone, and people who don't know um, could really think and be like, wow, this is such a large issue that I didn't even think about, particularly the statistics about doctors hearing symptoms of eating disorders and disordered eating in people of color and then just ignoring it. Also, particularly statistics on men and eating disorders are people never pay attention to that. They think it's very much a woman issue, which is so false. Because we all struggle with body image, and I talk about this a little bit in my rant that will come up after this, but how men are also shown um, pictures of really attractive men who have six packs and eight packs, and we all grew up watching Zac Efron. We know what he looks like. So how would that mess with your image of yourself as a young boy growing up? I don't know. I didn't grow up that way, but I could imagine that it would be really stressful and frustrating if you didn't fit that stereotype. So I just wanted to bring that to people's attention.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. It's like obviously super important to highlight, I guess, all the different intersections of how like body image like disorders like affect us. Um, and then, oh, and then one of the last pages of this post says statistics on women of color. Very little research has been done on this subject due to the continued bias that only white cis women are affected by this. Here are some things to note. In several case studies, only 17% of doctors labeled Black women's ED-like symptoms as problematic. Research shows that people who deviate from ideal beauty standards are more likely to develop low self-esteem and poor body image. Assimilation to this dominant culture and internalized racism are more likely to play a role in the development of body image for many women of color, making them more susceptible to eating disorders to fit said ideal type.
Yeah. Um, so that one obviously is a little bit more specific to one myself and a lot of my friends who are women of color. And I think growing up, in particular for me, as someone who was always told that their BMI was too high, for example. And for those who don't know, BMI is body mass index. You guys may have heard it, particularly if you're in the United States when you go to the doctor. It's a measurement they do to see if you fit into a category of overweight, like good weight, or underweight. I was always taller than everyone else, and therefore for my age, my weight was always higher. Therefore, I was always told I was overweight. Not the case. I was pretty active. I did lots of activities, but yet I was being told I was unhealthy. And I think when people go to the doctor, particularly women of color, um, they could be saying, like, I'm running like 15 miles a day, but I don't really eat much. And the doctor could be like, that's great, glad you're working out, but not realizing that that is an example of somebody with disordered eating patterns and an eating disorder. And the same thing for lots bulimia or anorexia or even just like binge eating. They could be saying these patterns, and doctors are supposed to be able to identify and treat it, but because they don't look a certain way, that they don't fit the bill of what we were taught to view as somebody struggling with that, they're just, oh, okay, they're just, they're just not eating very well. Go on a diet, run some more. Or Well, I guess you can just eat some more, and told all these things that are not very helpful. And these are issues that people are struggling with and are mentally so taxing. And I think being a woman of color is already very stressful, and you are met with a lot of body image issues or fresh out the womb, really, um, because the standard of beauty is not myself. um, so then on top of that, being told like, yeah, well, you still don't fit it no matter what by a doctor, by someone you're supposed to trust, um, can be really hard. So I wanted to call attention to that, and also the fact that people don't even do research on it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think like it just kind of shows like the bias in as like exists in every field, like not just is it like when you open a magazine in like the fashion industry, but it's also like your literal doctor who's doing this to you. And then some resources that Lauren included are the National Eating Disorder Association. And again, I'm going to put this up on the screen so you can copy down the number. The National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders, and the eating disorder support groups, and she includes one. Oh, so you can see that. And then I'm gonna keep scrolling. Oh, again, these headphones are just so not good.
You're killing it, Eric.
All right, so the next one I want to do is like this. Oh, this is the one that I had requested, the budget grocery shopping top tips. So something I always struggle with is like I want to eat healthy and um, I want to like cook for myself and like live this healthy lifestyle, but I'm like also, paying lots of student loans and I'm pretty recently out of college. So it's like balancing eating super healthy and cooking really nice meals that are organic and fresh. And then also like being able to save money, which is super important and obviously affects like so many different demographics of people. So Lauren has a post she made, and I'm going to read it. I'm going to show you the actual post, which has 4 tips which are buy in bulk, try frozen or canned foods, make a grocery list before going, and using coupons. And then I'll also read her like description. So it says, as promised, here are some simple tips for getting the groceries you need without breaking the bank. Number 1, buy in bulk. Items like grains or beans generally come in larger quantities, and by choosing to buy in bulk once every few weeks or month, you cut down on the number of times you have to shop and end up spending less. Number 2, frozen or canned foods. Sometimes there can be a bit of scrutiny towards frozen or canned foods or vegetables, but those foods still have so much value. Frozen vegetables and fruits last longer, and canned foods like beans tend to be cheaper and will last you a while. That's number 3, coupons. You definitely don't have to be an extreme couponer to start getting in on some good deals. So many stores have amazing deals hidden all over the place. You just have to be willing to look. Number 4, pre-shopping grocery list. It's something I struggle with. So maybe you're like me and get easily overwhelmed when shopping for food and never end up getting what you actually need. By making a list before, you take the guessing and remembering of what you need out of the equation. It keeps you on task and usually ends up making your list shorter. Also, by listing out what you're going to get beforehand, you can plan your budget around what you listed for the week. Um, so, if you have any added tips
Sure.
or comments about, I guess, those tips.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one, thank you for reading that. Eric did request that, and it was great content. So thank you. Um, I rec- I well, I can't even speak. Basically, I started using those tips when I was in college, and have tried to follow them. Living in New York City, which is expensive. And I think that the main goal for me, and something that I learned actually from my nutritionist, is that you don't have to break the bank to eat healthy and all this weird like commodification of wellness. being made to spend like $300 on like organic groceries and all these pills you're supposed to take to like make you healthier is BS. Because the nutrients are there in the food that even if it's not organic. Obviously, organic is amazing and great, but if you can't do that, that's okay too. And I realized I used to feel really bad about buying like frozen food versus canned food. I mean, frozen food and canned food versus fresh food. And like one as a young person, I don't cook all the time. Like I'm trying to be better, but I'm not perfect. And by getting stuff that can one last longer and last you like, and also generally is cheaper, but when you cook it still has the same nutrients, like why not? Also a note, this is related but not, frozen food has the same nutrients. In many cases, they actually flash freeze fresh vegetables, and that can oftentimes be better than fresh, where like you can get damaged fresh vegetables, whereas like they like say broccoli, get it fresh and immediately freeze it, goes in the bag. Great, awesome, lasts you super long time. Um, yeah, so I just want to really, I guess, take away the stigma of eating well. And like I think a lot of people get that fear of like, "Oh, I want to eat well, but like I can't afford to, so I'm just gonna like eat out." Not true. There are ways to do it. It's just about being a little bit clever, a little bit thoughtful. The grocery list is really hard for me, to be honest, but I've been trying to be better. Keeps me on task and it keeps me out of there quickly, especially in the age of COVID when I don't need to be outside for like more than 30 minutes. That's my quick notes on that. That was kind of a ramble, but thank you.
And then we'll do one more. Let's see. I know you post a lot about. I know you post a lot about gut health. So let's do one about gut health. Right, I'll let you pick. You
Ooh.
have one where you kind of talk about your immune system and the gut. Then you
Ooh.
have one about trauma and gut health. Which one would you rather talk about?
Oh my god, that's such a hard one. Ooh, I feel like trauma in the gut
Okay.
ends up relating to immune. So we'll do trauma in the gut. I'm also gonna pull it up now so I can reference it.
Okay. So this one has multiple different pictures, so I'll read through them. Trauma in the gut. There is a strong connection between the gut and the brain. They are in constant communication with each other. There is a positive correlation between stressful life events and severity of abdominal symptoms. When repeated trauma occurs, it takes root in the body and can manifest in gut issues like cramping, vomiting, diarrhea, and other obvious symptoms. Even if you aren't directly experiencing trauma, your gut can still live in the trauma state. Sufferers of trauma tend to have less microbiome diversity. I think I said that right. Microbiome.
You did.
Higher proportions of bad bacteria, smaller population of good bacteria. And then the last page is tips for dealing with trauma in the gut. And I'll let Lauren read that one and kind of talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll read the tips first. Thank you, Eric, for reading it. But self-care routine like meditation, going on walks, deep breathing, and yoga, or honestly, any self-care that works for you. Probiotics and prebiotics, movement. And by movement, I mean if that is exercise for you, that's great. If that's dancing for you, that's great. Really, whatever you can do to get your body and get your muscles warm. And therapy. Um, an excellent one if you can go to it and you have the privilege to do so. If not, that could look like support groups. Sometimes it can even look like talking to friends. So that's a little bit about that. Eric read it out beautifully, so thank you. But I'll touch a little bit on what I mean briefly. So trauma in the gut was like the name of the post, and this is something that I really wanted to touch on, or what initially got me into nutrition, because I was realizing I was going through a lot of stressful life events, and my stomach was just abysmal. I was like, what is going on? I became fearful of like leaving the house and like not knowing where a bathroom was going to be. So I was realizing when I started going on this journey of nutrition, getting into health coaching, I was like, um, why is it that when I'm stressed, either I can't eat or I can't keep anything in my body? And I realized after doing a lot of research that stress lives so much in our bodies. And you hear people say this all the time, but like, what does that even mean? And particularly in our gut, like, people say the gut feeling, that is a real thing that happens. And when you get stressed, um, it can lead to a lot of your body's in fight or flight. And when your body's in fight or flight, you get all those anxiety systems. And for a lot of people, that can translate to stomach issues, like the feeling of your stomach being in knots, the feeling of cramping. Some people say, like, I'm so nervous, I'm going to shit my pants. These are all phrases we know, but I don't think people put the link between it of realizing, oh, wait, why is it that I now feel like I'm going to shit my pants when I have a big presentation? What's going on? And it's your body is living in that state of like instant fear, of instant, like, I don't know what's going to happen next. And when that happens, it can lead to all these IBS like systems, and IBS is irritable bowel syndrome, um, and can lead to lots of constant like abdominal issues that even after you're out of that state of stress can still stay with you, because when you're in that state of stress your body can be all types of out of whack. I'll touch on the bacteria in your gut. People, you may have heard this before, maybe not, but your stomach has tons of bacteria, both good and bad. The point is to balance it. When you're stressed, that can get out of balance. And when that happens, I actually mentioned here, there's higher proportions of bad bacteria. That's when you can have things like diarrhea, vomiting, constipation, all these other issues that people experience when they're stressed because there's more bad bacteria than good. So, and less microbiome diversity is also when the bacteria in your gut isn't diverse. Like, you think we all learned this in like biology in seventh grade about like how algae in the pond, and like a pond, I forgot the name, like ecosystem has to be balanced and equal. And when it's not equal, it creates all these issues. Same thing with your stomach. It has to be balanced and equal. If there's too much of one thing, it could make your whole gut out of whack. And the idea of like incorporating these tips for dealing with it allows your body to kind of heal itself and take it out of that stress response. I know for myself, one major key was, I sound like DJ Khaled, was beginning a self-care routine. And like, I always roll my eyes when people say that, but really and truly, like taking a moment to just stop back and be like, okay, you're going to be fine. You're going to breathe through this. You're going to be okay. And realizing that things are not as big as I'm making them. I started doing a lot of breathing exercises, which really changed the game for me because I don't think I was breathing properly my whole life. And also probiotics, super, super important for me. I have always struggled with stomach issues. This could also be for people who've taken a lot of antibiotics, but the antibiotics can kill the good bacteria in your gut, for example, and then you're only left with bad bacteria or no real good bacteria, which can then lead to constipation, cramping, diarrhea, vomiting, all these things. And what probiotics do is putting those good bacteria back into your gut. Prebiotics also are great. They're the food for probiotics, basically. So if you're eating a lot of foods with prebiotics, the idea is that when you feed probiotics, they grow, you get more good bacteria, etc. Prebiotics are great, but not absolutely mandatory for anything. For some people, they can even cause like bloating and cramping, but probiotics, highly recommend. I literally have them next to me because I take them every day. I'm gonna pull them up. Align. This is not sponsored. My gastroenterologist recommended those, but once again, I always feel like I'm ranting, but that is my spiel on trauma in the gut. You guys can DM me if you have questions on that on Instagram.
Lauren, super helpful. Another way you can deal with some of your stress and anxiety is listen to some ASMR, which I love, obviously. Lauren, I appreciate you talking with me so much today. Even just like right now, I learned a lot as opposed to just looking at your Instagram. So, like, just again, I appreciate it. And everyone keep watching because after I hang up this call, the rest of the video is just going to be a solo Lauren, um, ASMR journey. So definitely stay tuned for that. I didn't have my mic up. I don't know how the audio is going to sound in this video, but either way, hopefully it's relaxing and informative. So thank you, Lauren, and have an amazing day, everyone. And hopefully I'll have Lauren again on the channel in the future.
Thank you so much, Eric, and thank you, Leftist ASMR people. Love you guys.
All right, bye.
Bye. Okay, hi everyone. This is my very first ASMR video in collaboration with Leftist ASMR. So thank you to him. Thank you, Eric. Love you much. So I figure I should introduce myself a little first. Also, like I said, this is my first ASMR, so if I'm not quiet enough or if my voice is not soothing enough, I'll work on it. Okay, so my name is Lauren. Me and at Leftist ASMR met in college. And obviously he's great. And he asked me to come on here and talk a little bit about body image and nutrition. But I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about me first and why that's even relevant that I'm talking about it. Okay, so in school, I actually didn't study anything with nutrition. I was a psych and organizational sciences major, but my whole life I've really been into eating well and eating healthy. I always had very weird, like, dietary restrictions growing up, self enforced, because I'm dramatic. But I, in the past year, started struggling with a lot of stomach issues. And along with that came like really weird feelings about my body, very weird feelings about like food, and like a lot of fear, honestly, that really made it hard, one, to even like go out in public, but then to even like be myself. I felt like, I don't know, I felt really awkward with my body. And obviously, I think tons of people go through that. And I think Eric has talked about that some even on this page, and that's totally normal. But I was realizing how much it was impacting my day to day, and like my image of myself was impacting my day to day. So whilst going through my stomach issues, I started to see a nutritionist in New York who, one, is absolutely fantastic. I'm obsessed with her. And she really changed my view, one, of myself, but also just of nutrition and eating well and like body image, and really broke down some barriers of things that I didn't even realize I had, or some really upsetting misconceptions about food and my body that, one, is not fair to me and should be talked about more. So Eric asked me to talk about that now with you guys, and I just wanted to give you a little update about me and how it got me here. But right now, what I'm doing actually is I'm currently in a health coaching program that I'll be completing in September. So woohoo, very exciting. And I'll be going into school in the fall to study nutrition. So I'm getting my master's in public health, and I'll with a focus in nutrition. So this is what I'm passionate about. So thank you for having me on and listening this far. I hope that this is still really soothing for you, even if I'm talking about body image stuff. Okay, so let's get started. So I think Eric has mentioned a little bit about capitalism on here. Haha. Obviously, this is a leftist ASMR, but I wanted to talk a little bit about like the capitalism and its relation to diet culture. So, diet culture within itself is something that can be found all over the world, but particularly in the United States, it's pretty heavy and it impacts everyone. People grow up feeling like they have to look a certain way, myself included, and that can really mess with your body image and make you feel insecure when everybody is different. Haha, funny, everybody is different. But it is. And honestly, I think that is something that has taken me a really long time to understand that myself as a black woman will not fit the same beauty standards, and I don't need to fit the same beauty standards as someone else. I just need to fit what fits me. So capitalism, there's some noise downstairs. I think it's okay now. Capitalism in particular really feeds off of the idea that people want to change and fix themselves. And I think by doing that, we all feel like feed into that, myself included. Like, I love getting some new skincare products. I love getting some new like hair stuff because I'm obsessed with hair, obviously. But what it does in particular with diet culture is it makes you feel like your body type isn't perfect. So what can you do to make it perfect? Buy more products. Buy into more diet and weight loss plans. Buy more like juicers and blenders and different types of food, different types of fad diets, gym memberships, like all these things. And some of those things aren't bad because one, I'm a big juicer. I also occasionally like going to the gym, though I'm more of a home workout person these days. And all these things. I want to pause because my mother is playing very loud music. Hopefully, you guys cannot hear it. But yeah, so because of that, by making people feel okay, by making people feel inadequate, it makes people want to buy to feel adequate, to feel like they fit in. So what that leads to is like those are all the commercials you see of like weird pills that you can buy to suddenly make you lose 10 pounds of fat in like 4 days, which in itself is like, do you want to be losing weight that drastically? I don't know. Doesn't really seem safe nor healthy. You want to be losing weight gradually and at a steady pace for yourself, because going into like really quick shocks like that would shock your body. Anyway, another rant, another day. But capitalism loves diet culture because of that, because you can make so much money off of marketing like wellness to people, which is really sad to me because wellness to me is a right. People deserve the right to feel good about themselves, deserve the right to feel good about their bodies. And when people are using that as like a crutch to be like, oh, by the way, do you feel insecure about that? You need to buy this product then, really sits with me the wrong way. And I actually was listening to a podcast like, I don't know, maybe like a year and a half ago now, where they were discussing like somebody's mowing the grass. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm hoping you can't hear this. I was listening to a podcast with Jamila Jamil, who, can be frustrating. So take this with a grain of salt. I'm gonna like tap on this so that you guys can't hear them on the lawnmower. But yeah, I was listening to a podcast with Jamila, and she was discussing how people, particularly beauty brands and clothing brands, and literally every big brand, really feeds itself off of making women feel bad to then go and buy products. And that could sound like, oh, are you worried about your fine lines and wrinkles? Oh no, you must buy this product. Are you worried about like dark spots, pimples, acne, all this stuff? And like 3000%, I still care about that stuff too. It is natural. But the idea that it just blew my mind that my whole life I was realizing, wow, like people are making other people feel bad about things that are naturally on their bodies to buy more. And I was like, what? What? And I was like, crap, okay, like I definitely have to like rethink some things. Because for example, lines and wrinkles, like aging, I actually heard this on Queer Eye. Jonathan Van Ness said this, and I was like, brilliant. Probably not the first person to say that, but still. Jonathan said, like, aging is a privilege. And I was like, wow, aging is a privilege. That is, we are so lucky to get to like continue to age and see more years. And like, lines and wrinkles are a sign of that. Like dark spots on your hands or like age spots, so to speak, are a sign of that. And that should be loved on more. And I think that is something that made me stop and think, and that was kind of like the beginning of my awakening. So yeah, that is very frustrating, and I hope maybe you'll be like, wow, what? I didn't even think about it that way. So yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about diet culture and body image and what it's made us feel. I literally am looking at my notes. So thank you for sticking with me. But so when I was in college, I took a class on the African American experience. Plot twist, I'm African American. It really opened my eyes to a lot of things because I realized how many things were so nuanced. And, I grew up in a predominantly Black area and region of the country, and where people were generally like affluent. I didn't understand, like a lot of the tropes that were depicted for African Americans because that was not my experience. So I remember growing up thinking, how could anybody associate that with Blackness? Like that's just a random thing. For example, like the idea is like the girls who are always at the club twerking and shaking their ass, or like everybody like being struggling for money or things like that. And those are real experiences. But in my experience growing up, lots of people experienced struggle. Lots of people dealt with things. And not till I went to college did I realize, like, oh, like the rest of the country seems to think that this is the only depiction of African Americans. Like, this is their only reference. And I was like, wait a minute. That's really confusing because I say this all the time, but Black people are not a monolith. We are varied and we are vast. And that should be celebrated and appreciated. And the idea that we are all one thing is really frustrating. But another tangent, but diet culture really feeds off the idea of Blackness, particularly Black bodies being one thing. And there was a book that was referenced when I was in college a lot, and a lot of theories that were referenced. And this book is called Fearing the Black Body. It was written by Sabrina Strings. Excellent book, highly recommend. And I actually listened to a podcast last year by At the Nod Show. Also going to plug them because they're great. And this podcast, they're interviewing Sabrina Strings, and she is basically explaining how diet culture was invented in like the late 1800s, I believe. Do not quote me on that. I do believe it was in the 1800s. And it was originated from magazines. And it was this whole idea that being larger was one associated with laziness, which was then associated with Blackness. Like, Black women were, in particular, were associated with being fat, large, ugly, lazy, like all these really derogatory words towards their bodies. And by associating being larger with being black, suddenly white women in particular, because it's the 1800s, were like, oh my God, I cannot be fat. I can't look like a black woman. I can't do that. And thus began diet culture and the fear of blackness. And then from that, it was suddenly like being larger was then associated with laziness. Why? Let's just take a moment on that one, because once again, like I said at the beginning of this video, every single body is different. None of us know what somebody is going through in their lives, what their body makeup is, how much they work out, what their diet consists of. None of us know. Unless, you have a kid and you are the one feeding them, but that's a different situation. But my point being is that there are so many facets to someone's body and the way that they present, and by associating in our minds, this is, tons of people do this, that if you are what is considered overweight or you are larger, then naturally you must be lazy. You're not trying enough. You're eating terribly. You're not working out. When we know that's not the case. Like, literally not the case at all. There are so many, for example, there are genetic predispositions. There are conditions where people look a certain way or don't look a certain way. There can be a person who is extremely skinny but eats terribly. But the point is, with that doesn't mean that their insides are super healthy, but they'll be perceived as healthy because they're skinny. And I mean, you all have to have seen this all the time with Lizzo. People come for Lizzo constantly. Meanwhile, she's minding her business, but whatever. And it is so frustrating and disturbing to me, the amount of people that hate on her simply for existing. That woman is performing constantly. She is working out. She is singing at full volume. She is playing the flute, which I don't know if you guys have played an instrument. That is a lot of breath work. And breath work is a whole other type of workout. I highly encourage you to try it because you will be sweating. And it is frustrating simply because she's not what people deem as the ideal fit body. She must be lazy. She's eating terribly, yada, yada, yada. And that is absurd. So let me go back to my original point of 1800s. We flash forward to diet culture now. And it's the same inherent fear in the back of our heads of, oh my God, I have to look a certain way. I can't be larger than I am. I have to try a new diet. I have to be that. I have to cut carbs. I have to cut sugar. I have to do this. I have to do keto. Da 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 da. Why? I just, what's frustrating for me is that people choose to do all these really quick fixes because they are striving to be one particular body type. That who made up that body type? Who made up that beauty standard? It was not me. And all around the world, these beauty standards vary, obviously, but in America specifically, there is this this type of body that people are striving for, I think. And I once saw something where it like did it by the decade of the 60s, very, very slim and petite. But now it's all like slim, thick, and like I want a Kardashian body. And you know what? I'm not even gonna bad talk the Kardashians. I hope they get their money because clearly people are buying into it. Whatever, they're being smart. It's a smart business decision. But what is frustrating is that Black women in particular, and other women too, have had bodies like this for years, where they are, thicker, naturally carry more weight, myself included. My body type naturally. I'm pretty tall for a girl. I carry a lot of weight in my lower section, like thighs and stomach region, and that's just the way my body is set up. And that's dope and cool. But the fact that for years this was demonized when it's seen on Black women, and seen as lazy and not cute. But then, somebody who is not black does it, and it's like, oh my God, I have to look like this. My ass needs to be this bad, blah, 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 blah. And that is frustrating for many a reason, but it is what leads to so many people feeling bad about their body and so many people feeling like they're inadequate because we all end up comparing ourselves to these unrealistic visions of beauty and these unrealistic standards. We are, once again, I will keep saying it, we're all different. And no, your body will never look like the next person's because you are not that person. And that's my point here, is that what diet culture is, it keeps us trapped in this mindset of, wow, like I must look this way and therefore I will defy myself food to look a certain way. Well, let me just drop some fun facts. When you, for example, a lot of people for keto, for example, of like the cutting of the carbs and other random things. I've never even looked into keto because I was like, seems stressful. And you know what it is? And the reason that it's stressful is because you're depriving your body of food it needs. Like, your body can go into ketosis. Your kidneys could fail. This is all that you Google, like what happens to the body when something goes wrong with keto. It is not made to be long term because your body should not be doing that every day. And that's the issue with diets and these fast ones, is they were not made for long-term sustainability. And when people try to do it for long term, they find that they're having all these other health conditions because their body is not getting the nutrients it needs. And also, this is something I used to do, and especially in high school and college. I'd go, like, I'd maybe eat in the morning or like eat one big meal in the day, and I'm like, I'm good, I'm gonna drink coffee, oh, this is fine. In the back of my head, I'd be like, you know what, I didn't eat that much today, so I'm gonna lose weight. But what I didn't realize, and what I didn't realize till I started seeing a nutritionist, is that when you don't give your body the nutrients it needs, it won't burn calories the same way. You're going to hold on to that because your body is in crisis mode, being like, when is the next time I'm going to get food? I don't know. And that is something that blew my mind because I was like, all this time I've been trying to lose weight. And meanwhile, my body is like, sis, it's not going anywhere. We need it. We don't know the next time we're going to get it. And that was life changing for me. Also, the fact that, for example, random other facts, carbs are not just bread, carbs are in fruits and vegetables, and they're absolutely necessary for literally everything, but mostly your brain. The same things with fats, like avocado and olive oil, absolutely necessary, particularly for your cell function. So, all these things people try to cut out, your body's going to be like, whoa, please don't cut that out. We need that. And if you do cut it out for long term, next thing you know, you're going to be feeling unhappy. You're going to be feeling frustrated, stressed. You probably won't see the results you want because you can work out all you want, but diet is like 70% of the battle. So, I mean, it is hard getting to this place, and it is hard to like take a step back and be like, whoa, but it's important work to do and something that I try to strive for everyone to think about differently, just like the ways in which we can nurture ourselves and feed our bodies. So with that, my last note is just some quick thoughts for you guys about body image. I know that there are tons of us struggling with it, and I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, you are not alone. Also, body image is not something that I think in the media it's been depicted that, especially like things such as eating disorders, that's a very white cis woman thing. That they're the only ones that are struggling with this. And I want to really say that that is so not true. So many other people of color are struggling with this and are constantly, and that we were brought up to see all these visions of beauty that were white women, very thin white women. But what happens when you already are not in that ideal standard of beauty and yet you're trying to meet it when you can never logically meet it? And you all may be able to hear the train honking. My parents live near a train track. That standard is already so hard to meet. And so what that does is it already puts you in a vulnerable place. And when you're in that vulnerable place, you're like, well, I'm never going to meet that, but I can try, and I can try to be perfect and try to be this. But that's just, it's unfortunate, and it leads to so many young people in particular struggling with this that are not white cis women feeling left out and alone and feeling like nobody can listen to them. In many studies, they've actually shown, NEDA, which is National Eating Disorder Association, has some great statistics on this, where they say, like, in many cases, I remember the specific statistic for Black women. Black women will go to the doctor with symptoms of eating disorders, and instead of helping them, it was like only 17% of doctors picked it up that they were symptoms. The rest were like, whatever. And I think that has to do a lot with, one, how doctors are taught to deal with people of color, and particularly Black women. Not great. And two, that I think they think, okay, if this person doesn't look like look like they have an eating disorder, then why? They're probably fine. And that is so damaging and can make people feel so alone. And I know that so many people are struggling with this, not just Black women, but like literally all Black, Indigenous people of color are struggling with this, and also people in the LGBTQIA plus community also are struggling with this, because once again, when you're not in that typical standard of beauty, what happens when you're met with that constantly? It leads to stress, and it leads to making you feel insecure, and even just simply just with men. There's not a very large conversation about what happens when they're not in the typical standard of attractiveness for men, like the struggles with being really thin and really muscular, really fit. What happens then when they don't feel that? And it can lead to men having tons of symptoms and disordered eating, because they're like, I have to look like this. I have to look like this guy. And I remember even in high school, like the wrestlers in particular, the way that they would try to make weight was alarming. Like they just stop eating for days. They drink water. I'm like, bro, what? Like, how can you wrestle like that? You haven't had nutrients. And it's really toxic. And I say all that to say that you are seen, at least by me and by Eric at Lefties ASMR, that your body image can be a struggle regardless. And I don't have all the answers for how to get over this. I know for myself, therapy's great. Seeing a nutritionist, if you have the opportunity, is great. And obviously I'm in a place of privilege that I was able to see both people dealing with issues, my own issues, but honestly, like talking to friends that you can trust. If you feel comfortable with your parents, talk to your parents. There are tons of chat rooms online too. And I would hope that anything that I've said can be a bit like, wow, I feel seen, or I didn't know that. I would hope from this. But yeah, it's heavy stuff for sure. And I know that this is sometimes used to have people fall asleep. So I hope that my ranting makes you feel good in that way. But yeah, excuse me, you guys probably heard me burp on the mic. But I just want to say thank you for listening this far. I talk a lot about this on many of my platforms. So feel free to follow me on Instagram at nutritionlow, NUTRITIONLO. Probably spelled that wrong, but feel free to check me out. Because I talk a lot about, breaking diet culture. Also, just like tips about eating and like gut health. Those are a lot of my struggles as well. So I am more than happy to have you, and I hope this had some discussion in the comments and stuff. But thank you guys for listening, and thank you, Eric at Leftist ASMR, for having me on. I really appreciate it. You guys are amazing. Keep being leftist. And have a lovely rest of your day, night, or whatever time of the day it is. Signing off.